He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This one's wife. Woman in black sweater eats dinner. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Yes, welcome to the tedium that is this one's wife's world, where the most uninteresting things that she does end up being covered. This is in part down to two things. First, her need for fuel and control means that she has to try and utilize the most mundane of activities and turn them into a means by which she can publicize them to the world, thus asserting control over an audience and also receiving fuel by way of a response. If she was a talented, fascinating individual that was regularly setting records for the sales of books or records, or kicking ass and taking names in business, or was achieving in the field of sports, then there would be certainly more to write about. The latest exploits that she got up to in terms of taking over a company, or perhaps bringing out new products, or dealing with adverse publicity for that company. Perhaps a performance in a particular sporting event showing off sporting excellence that could be reported on a weekly basis as she appears each time for a particular team, or competing in a tournament off her own back. But she doesn't do any of those things. What does she actually do? Works 1 hour a week in relation to Archwell, pretends to be a mother, bosses Harry around, and then the rest of the time buys clothing and jewellery, flies in private jets, and turns up at events and spouts word salad. That's it. Not particularly interesting, and rather repetitive. But she has to ensure that the world knows about all of that. Also, unfortunately for the world, many people take notice of her. Some because they actually like her, most because they want to watch the train wreck finally arrive at that railway station of oblivion. And accordingly, rather than turn their backs upon her and not click on any items and not watch any programs related to her, people can't help but want to read and watch about what she's doing, purely to have a good old laugh at her desperation, to see the latest faux pas that she makes, to revel in the latest fashion abomination that she's wearing. And of course, all of the relevant media outlets recognise this and know that she's good for the clicks. They don't care if people are clicking on it because they like her or whether because they dislike her, as long as they click, in a way. The outlets are just like a narcissist. Love me or hate me, but just don't ignore me. And thus, this means that we are subjected to repeated reports about her engaging in mundanities such as, for example, in People.com, Erin Hill reports, this one's wife and Prince Harry step out for dinner in Austin at spot linked to their first date. Open brackets, exclusive, close brackets. This one's wife and Prince Harry are squeezing in a special date night before the Duchess of Sussex's panel appearance at the South by Southwest conference on Friday. Yes, rather than spend more time with the children and perhaps fly across to Texas the following morning, they decided to go the night before, having another night away from the children to add to the stay in New York and the second stay in New York, and going to the Caribbean and going to Jamaica and going to Dusseldorf and going to Portugal and going to Whistler and going to various concerts. Yes, no wonder Archie thinks that a couple of palm trees are his parents, because he hardly ever gets to spend any time with them. On Thursday night, the couple grabbed dinner at Soho House, Austin, in Texas. This one's wife, 42, and Harry, 39, travelled from their home in Montecito, California, to Austin, where the Duchess will participate in the opening day keynote panel on International Women's Day. This one's wife and Harry, you'll be delighted to know, dined at a corner table. Fantastic. Glad I know that now. At the private members club. They were happy and in great spirits, and Onlooker tells People. Naturally, People, as one of the supine publications, needs to have it put out there because this one's wife needs everybody to know my marriage is brilliant and idyllic. A non-narcissist wouldn't give a rat's ass about people knowing that they were dining out, nor what spirits they were in. But this one's wife the reaction and reportage of what she's doing is actually more important to her than the experience itself, which demonstrates to you what an empty life she leads. Harry apparently was very animated throughout the dinner. Excuse me. They were super low-key and seemed happy to be around the upbeat vibes at the lively venue. What? Happy to be around the upbeat vibes? Is that a band or something? Or is that code for something else? Soho House is a very special place for the couple. They had their first blowjob there at the one in London in July 2016, when a sweaty bollocked Harry got blown by this one's wife, and therefore he thought, fuck me, she's the girl for me. Red-cheeked, puffing, sweaty, half an hour late, I ran into the restaurant, into the quiet room, and found her sitting at a small area on a low velvet sofa in front of a low coffee table, Harry recalled as prompted by his wife as she wrote it out for him in his memoir Spare. She was wearing a black sweater, jeans, heels. I knew nothing about clothes, but she told me what she was wearing, so I've written it in my book. But I knew she was chic because she told me she was. Then again, she could make anything look chic. For instance, she could look like Kermit the Frog going to church, and she would look chic. She could look like a fridge on the stage, being a hypocrite about the COVID vaccines. She could wear a sack while she tells people all about how she's been hard done to. She could look like a squeezed tube of toothpaste while she talks about how brilliant a mother she is to people who've recently lost their children. Yes, she can make anything look special. I'd seen so many photos of her from fashion shoots which I'd jizzed over, and TV sets, all glam and glossy, which was fortunate because then they were wiped clean. But here she was, in the flesh, no frills, no filter, and even more beautiful. Heart attack beautiful. Is that what you want me to write, Megs? Thought so. I was trying to process this. Naturally, I'm a thick twat, and therefore I was struggling to understand what was happening to my circulatory and nervous systems. Thanks, Ghostwriter, for spelling those for me. And as a result, my brain couldn't handle any more data, not for the first time. Conversation, pleasantries, getting noshed off, all became a challenge. This one's wife FaceTimed Harry later that evening, and they set another date for him to get noshed off, agreeing to meet at Soho House the next night. On Friday, this one's wife will join a panel titled Yada Yada Blah Blah Blah, talking about myself. Thus, we have an article that's basically telling us they went out for dinner and they were spotted in high spirits and they were enjoying the vibes. And that's it. And then it gets turned into an article about the first time they met at Soho House, with an opportunity, of course, to remark about how beautiful and amazing this one's wife is. The PR puff piece does its job again. But of course, only the most thick, i.e. the sugars, will swallow all of this. Everybody else thinks, yes, once again, a woman in a black sweater eats dinner, and we're told about it because this one's wife has to ensure that she's always spoken about and always mentioned because her narcissism demands that. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.